So we're going to begin the project by opening a new folder, and I just opened my new folder in my documents directory. So I went to documents and I created a new folder and I called it project web dev. So inside of this folder, you would notice here that this folder is completely empty. So I can open up this folder. If you have installed Visual Studio Code and you installed it properly, you should see this option here that says open with code. So what this option means is that you're going to open this entire folder in Visual Studio Code, so you can make modifications to that folder using Visual Studio Code. So I would do this with mine here, and now this folder is open. You notice that there is nothing here. This is where you have a list of files within the folder, but there is nothing here because obviously the folder is empty. So let me enlarge this. Okay. Now you can obviously see it. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to add a new file. You see here there's an option to add a new file. There's an option to add a new folder. So I'm going to add a new file inside of it, and I'm going to name it index.html. Remember, HTML files. Oh, I spelled it wrongly. Let me edit. Let me rename it. So you notice what happens when I spell it correctly. HT HTML HTML. So yeah, remember I said that HTML documents have a an extension of .html. You notice this angle brackets here indicates to the code editor is indicating that this is an HTML document. So the advantage of using code editors, um, it has many advantages though, but one of the advantages is it gives you an opportunity to write code in a very fast way. So you can generate boilerplate HTML code. That is, you don't start from scratch. You can generate boilerplate HTML code that will allow you to start all just by clicking HTML, and you would see the option for HTML5, and you can tap on it, and it immediately generates the necessary HTML code that you would need to begin your document. This is the important code structure. It calls HTML5 boilerplate. We have the doc type, we have the HTML tag declaration, the attributes that tells you the language you are going to be writing in. So we're going to be writing in English. Then we have the head tag. Everything that goes in inside of the head tag describes what the document is about, but it's never displayed on the web page. And everything that goes in the body tag is what will be displayed on the web page. And this will be the place that we'll be writing all our HTML tags that will be displayed on the web page. Remember the title tag that displays the title of the document. So I'm going to rename this title tag to Aurora. So that is what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to save this file and I'm going to go back. Remember we created a new file. Now this new file is present in Project Web Dev. And you notice that there is an icon now that indicates that this file can be opened using a web browser. So I'm just going to double tap and it's going to immediately open. Let me quickly close these other tabs so that you don't get distracted. So you notice here that the title tag is Aurora, and that is the only thing that is being displayed. But it's not being displayed on the page itself, but it is displayed at the top of the tab. So it describes the title of this page. So you notice that the title is Aurora. Now let's go back to our code editor. Let's go back to our code editor here. And from the diagram of Aurora, of the page named Aurora, we noticed that the first thing we saw was a navigation bar. Now we are going to use HTML semantic tag called nav that describes where the navigation is going to be. So this tag describes where the navigation is going to be. And inside of this tag, I am going to place two additional tags. One of them is going to be the span tag, and the other is going to simply be a button tag. I'm adding using these ones just for simplicity's sake. So the button tag, well, anyhow, HTML doesn't obey white spaces, doesn't give respect to white spaces. So when your browser is processing your code, it removes all the white spaces. So even if you add white space in between your tags, that is, you space one tag to another, it will just display the content there. It will not display a white space in addition to the content. White space, what I mean is this space that exists here right now, it doesn't process it. That's why I can next it, and just for to make it visually appealing. I could write everything on a straight line and it will still work, but I have to next it to make it visually appealing. So it's easy for you to understand that, oh, this is where this opening tag is and this is where this closing tag is. So let's go back to our span tag. Let me next this also. Let me give this space. So going back to our span tag, we have the name of the site, which is profile.me. Yes, we have profile.me, and we also have our button name, which is say hi. Yes. So let us quickly save this, and you notice that nothing has appeared here, but if I refresh, yes, it immediately appears. So the browser now has processed this and it has displayed, because this is found in the body of the web page. So in the body of the web page. So let us proceed from there. Now we are done with our navigation. This section will be the navigation section that contains only two things: the button that indicates say hi, and the name of the site, which is profile.me. Now we will come down here and we will declare a new tag, which is main. Now this main tag tells the browser, it's a semantic tag also, just like the navigation tag that tells the browser where the navigation elements are going to go. This tag tells the browser where the main content of the web page is going to begin from. So um, for SEO and other things, it's always best and it's always advised that you always have only one main tag in your entire document. That is only one main tag. Every other thing should be inside of the main tag. If the main tag is being displayed, if there are two main tags, one should be disabled and one should be enabled. That is the golden rule to ensure that what you are building is standard. Many persons do make this mistake, but I am giving you this now. Whenever you are writing, anytime in the future you are writing, always ensure that you use only one main tag in your entire document. So now inside of the main tag, I can recall that we have an image. Yes, inside of the main we have an image. We also have a we have an image. We have a name. We have what looks like an underline, which is a line underneath it. And we have text that describes the document. So for us to add that image, you to see how CSS works. So I will not be using the HTML image tag, but I will be adding the image as a background to an element on the page using CSS. So I will just be using a div tag, a div tag. Yes. And if you notice, the Visual Studio Code gives you suggestions on tags that you can use. These suggestions that it gives you is an added advantage of using a code editor, because it helps you write code really fast. If you use something else that is not a code editor, it might not give you any suggestions, and you would always have to write things from your head. And you can't even know, you can't really tell when you are making a mistake until you've tested your code, which saves you a lot of time by using a code editor. So let us continue. So I'm going to name this, I'm going to give this a class. Now this is what we refer to as a class. This is an attribute here. So I can give it a class, I can give it any name I wish, but I'm going to give it, it's best to always give your classes and your IDs names that you can always remember and relate with. So I'm going to give it a name of image. So here will be where the image will be displayed on the page. if I can write something here, I can say this is where the image, sorry, image would go. So that's where the image will go. So you can see where it is. Then the next thing after the image was a header, or I should say the name of the individual, because during this project I expect that you're going to use your own image, your own beautiful image, to replace the image of that beautiful girl. So what you're going to do is I'm just going to show you how easy it is for you to achieve that. So the next thing would be the name, which is H1. H1 will be the name. So you use H1 and you type H1 here. That is heading 1. Use heading 1. So we have heading 1. Now, this heading 1, I think the best way for me to describe it would be to show you what it would look like in Microsoft Word. So let's look for the Microsoft Word document. And inside of your Microsoft Word document, if I say my name is, sorry, my name is Desmond, and I want to make this my name is Desmond a heading, I would first of all highlight it like this. Then I will go into styles, and inside my styles I can find heading 1 and heading 2. Now you notice that heading 1 is bigger than heading 2. That's exactly the same thing that happens in HTML. There are, I think, six or five headings. So there's heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, heading 5. And heading 1 will be the biggest, heading 2 will be smaller than heading 1, heading 3 will be smaller than heading 2, and it just goes on like that. So this time around, we are using, please do not save. This time around, we are using heading 1 here. So heading 1 would contain the person's name, which is Aurora, and another tag I am going to use will be the horizontal rule tag. Now this tag is a different kind of tag that does not need to have a closing tag. So you can write this tag. There's so many tags like that, and we're going to talk about most of the tags that do this in our course. So this tag doesn't need a closing tag, so it can stand on its own. So it's a horizontal row tag. This tag creates a straight line. It creates an horizontal row, just like an underline. Then we also have a paragraph. Now, if you notice, the paragraph wasn't spread throughout the page. It was in such a way that it was encapsulated. You can take it back. I'm going to show you the end points, or the end of. Let me just show you let's see what it looks like. So if you notice here, you'll see that this entire paragraph was encapsulated. It looks structured. It looks like a square. It's not spreading from one end of the page to another. So this is achieved using a container. So when we place this paragraph inside of a container, we can define the width of that container. And the paragraph, this text is just like liquid, and it just take only the shape or the width of the container. And remember that a container is like a wrapper, or yes, a wrapper. And remember, the wrapper tag we indicated before was the div tag. So we'll see how a div tag acts as a wrapper. Let us continue. So we would use, after the horizontal row, we're going to add a div tag. Now this div tag would contain the paragraph. Remember, tag stands for paragraph. And I'm just going to generate random text using lorem ipsum. So before, I would be thinking of where to copy text from and paste, but lorem ipsum gives you random text that you can't even understand. So you don't focus on what the text is saying. Instead, you focus on your work and your design. So I can just type lorem and it will generate random text for me. I'm sure this is even Latin or Spanish. I don't know really which is which. So yeah, and you'll see. Let's see how far we have gone. Let's see what happens here. Aha, you see that This is the navigation. This is where the image will go, and this is the header or the title of the document. This is the horizontal line, and this is the random text. It doesn't look anything like this. It doesn't look anything like this, but that's why we have to use CSS. CSS creates this. It adds beauty to HTML. HTML on its own is just skeleton, but CSS will make us be able to do this. So let's see how we are going to style this using CSS. Let's start. So to begin writing your CSS code, remember we have, let me separate this. Remember we have a head section and we have a body section. So I'll just close this body so you can see it. So you can see the contents. So we have a head section here and we have a body section. So it's just basically is HTML, head, body, and close of HTML. So these two tags are the most important tags in any HTML document. The head tag, the opening and closing head tag, and the body tag. The head, everything that goes in the head describes what this page is about or the information about this page. The body contains everything that needs to be displayed. So remember, it describes everything about the page. So this is where we are going to place our style. We're going to place our style in the head tag here because it's going to describe how the web browser is going to style the page. So it's obvious that it should go in the head. So we declare it using the style tag. We have the opening style tag and the closing style tag. So what is the first thing that we are going to style here? Let us look at it. So the first thing that we're going to style here is the navigation bar. Navigation bar doesn't look anything like a navigation bar. So we are going to go back here and style the navigation bar. Remember, for you to write your style, you have a format, what they call a selector. You have selector, you have this, then you have property, and you have value, and you close. This is the structure for CSS. Now we're going to see it work live here. Let us select a particular element. So this is the element I want to select, this navigation bar, this navigation from here to here. I want to select and style everything inside of this navigation. So I'm going to select navigation by writing nav. I'm going to add this. So remember spacing also, it doesn't really matter. So I can enter so that it will make it look easy for me to read. Then I would add the property. So the property I want to add here would be background color. So you can see it, background color. So now I have done that, I can add a value. What value of background color should I use? Let's say I want to use blue. Let us see how the blue will turn out. So I could delete this now because this is an invalid CSS code. So I could just I will save this. Let me make it look like something that you've seen before. So something like this. This is what it looks like. I could just yes, this is what it looks like normally, but I can add spacing to make it easy for anybody to see that okay, this is the property I've added, and I can add more properties to it. So let me save this and see what happens as I added a background color and of blue to the navigation bar. So let's see. Now you see that immediately the navigation bar turns blue. This entire section where navigation is turns blue, and you notice that the width of the entire navigation is from this point to the end of the page. But you also notice that there is a spacing around it. This is supposed to start from the edge, but it's not starting from the edge. There's a spacing around it. So let's fix that. For us to fix that, we need to identify where the spacing is coming from, and the spacing is coming from this body element here, this body tag. This body tag also has its own spacing, and there are two major types of spacing in HTML and in web development. There is the padding and there is the margin. So the padding is the space that goes inside of the document. You would see that when I explain it. And the margin is the one that goes outside. So it's more like somebody needs space and he's pushing people away. That is margin. And somebody he needs internal space. So inside of himself, something is creating space. That is padding. I'm sorry that, but that illustration might not might not be the best illustration, but we'll see it practically here. So let's select the body element. So body, and we'll select body, and we want to add, want to reduce the margin. So we're going to set the margin here. That's the property that I want to reduce, or its margin. I'm going to set it to 0 or 0 pixels. That is, it should not have any margin. Margin should start at 0. So if I save this, let's see what happens, whether it will take away this space or not. So it does, it takes away the space around this element. So let's continue. So the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to add a property of, the next property we're going to add is height. If we notice in the image here, we will see that the height of this is, it's high, it's large. There's enough space for you to see the profile.net. There's enough space here. So we're going to correct that now, and we're going to add height. And let's say we make the height 50 pixels. So we're just going to test it out at 50 pixels. Let's see what happens. So this is 50 pixels. Might not be that much. Let's see this again. Let's make it 70 pixels. Let's add an additional 20 pixels. Yeah. So I think this will be okay. Now the next thing we need to do would be to add some padding to the entire mix. So we'll add some padding here. So you see what padding looks like. We'll add padding of 20 pixels inside of this document. And you'll notice that it will behave funny. So let's see. First, you notice that the height increased also, and there's a space now between or around this element. So what has happened is that it has added some padding inside of this document, or inside of this section. It has added padding inside of the section. It didn't add space outside, it added it inside, and it increased the height because padding affects the internals. So it increased the height. So I'm just going to reduce the height by taking away 20 from the height, so that it will add up. 20 from the height will give me 50. So in total, the new height will still be 70 pixels. So yes, the new height is still 70 pixels. So I can also increase the padding, and I can increase the padding to 30, and also reduce this to 40. So let's see what that does. Now you also see that this now is almost centralized, but I'm just doing this to show you how padding works. So let us go back and make corrections. So we'll leave this at 50, and we'll leave this at 20. So let us move to the next thing. The next thing on the page that we would style again before we complete, we come back and complete this, would be the image. Let us make this image appear. So we go back to the folder where we have this document that we are editing. You notice that there is no image here. So I am going to just search for that image. I'm going to search for the image here and bring it in here. So let's look for that image. I think I have the image here, and I'm going to copy it. Uh, and I'm going to paste it here. So the reason why I'm pasting the image here is so that it will be in the same root directory as the file. It will be in the same location as the file. So I can easily call it. I don't need to define a full path to find it. So the name of the image is Aurora, and the image type is JPG. So that's the image extension. You can find the extension by going to properties, selecting and going to properties, and you would find the type of file. The extension is .jpg. You should always know the file's extension so that you can select it using your CSS, or you can select it in your code. So we'll go back to the code editor and we would select the class. The class here that says this is where the image should go. The class is image, image. That's the class name. The class name is image. The, the tag, the HTML tag is div. So what you can do is you can type in div dot image. Now div dot image, the dots here is is what they refer to as a class selector. Is what you use to identify a class, because if you type in image without a dot, it will think there is a tag called image, which there is none. So if you add a dot in front of it, it tells it that there is a class called image, and look for that class called image. So it can work without this div in front of it, but it can also work with the div in front of it. But we're going to use the div in front of it so it will be easy for you to understand. So what it's saying here is that there is a div, and inside of that div there's a class called image. Find it and apply this styling to it. So the styling I want to add now will be background image. So background image takes a value of URL, that is the universal resource locator. URL, the exact location. Tell me the exact location of the image. That's what the URL is trying to say. So the exact location of the image, if you notice here, the image is on the same place, is in the same location with the index. So you don't need to specify any location. You just need to specify the name of the image, because it will search within around that same location. So we just check, uh you add this, sorry, then you check for aurora.jpg. So after you add your quotes here, you type in the image and it will appear. But if I save this, notice what happens. The image immediately doesn't appear. The image doesn't immediately appear here. The only thing that happens is it appears around where this is where the image would go. It just appears here, but it doesn't look like an image, right? So I'm going to add a height and width to this image, to this element. Height of 200 pixels and width of 200 pixels, and I'm going to save it. Let's see what happens then. So now you notice that this shape has appeared, but the image doesn't still seem like there is an image here. What has happened is that this image is so large that it has expanded beyond the width and height we have set out for it. So what we are going to do is we are going to set a new property of background size, background size, and we're going to set it to cover. Let's see cover first. So what happens is if I refresh this, you can see that now the image is taking up the space that is available to it. So you can set up the background size to take up background image, take up the space that is available. So I'm going to remove this ugly looking text here that is spoiling everything. Just going to go back and remove this text here, then save. Yes, I'm going to remove the text there and save. Then I'm going to add an additional property called background position. So what I'm going to do in this background position is that I'm going to make it in the center. So this is what background position does. Um, remember this image is not centralized here. So if I refresh this now, it is now centralized. Now you notice that the text is gone and the image is now in the center. So if you look at the image, the goal we are aiming towards, it's in a circle. It's in a circle here, but here it's in a square. So for us to achieve that, we would add an additional CSS property to this same image. We'll add a property called border radius. So border radius ensures or checks the edge of the document. So I'm just going to set the border radius to 10 pixels first, just to show you how it works, because we are going to use this property again. So you notice that this edge is sharp. Corner here is really, really sharp. So if I refresh this now, notice that the corner is rounded. So it has taken 10 pixels, 10 pixels off the edges. So if I keep on taking these pixels, taking the pixels from all the edges, eventually this will become round and form a circle. But I don't know exactly how many or how much this how many pixels I need to take. So I would need to specify that in a percentage. So let me try that using a percentage now to achieve a circle. So I will just set it at 50%. 50% and save it. Let us now see what happens here. Voila. Now you have a circle. So we can see here that now the image is rounded and is looking at least something like this, but it's still large and it doesn't still have that blue circle around it. Now the next thing that we are looking at is this line here. The line is very long, but in the image here, the line is just short and it's even in a different color. And if we notice here too, there is a different color here, and the background is pure white, but there's a different color here. So let's 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 work on this now. Let's work on this. So we'll go back to our code editor, and the next thing we would look at would be, we already talked about the image, will be the text. Let's look at the text. Let's give this a class of paragraph. Paragraph. So let's give it a class of paragraph. Now, reason why we're giving this a class of paragraph is to allow us select only this element, because if we select a div, any 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 CSS we apply to that div would also be applied to every div on the page, but it will not be applied to only that specific div. So, but if we give it a class or we give it an ID, it should be applied to only a specific div or group of divs that contain that class. So now we have a div with class of paragraph. Let us add it here. So we now have a div with the class of paragraph. So we have a div with a class of paragraph. And now what do we want to happen to that div with a class of paragraph? First, let's look at it. First, we notice that this is taking the entire length of the screen. And we notice here that this doesn't. It takes just some section, just a section of it. We want to reduce the length, and we're going to do that by specifying a width, a maximum width for this. Let us do that here. So we're going to specify a width. I'm going to set the width at, let's put it at 300 pixels. Now you see that it has reduced the length of the text. What has happened? Let me give it a border so you see what actually happened. So let me give it a border. A border is an outline. So I can give it a border with 1px solid red. almost any property can have a border. So let's refresh this, refresh it. You can see it here. Now I've given it a border of red. The reason why I gave it this border so that you can see what happened before. Let me take away the the width I added. Let me take it away and save and see what happens before. By the way, if you want to refresh from your keyboard, it's Control R if you're using a Windows computer. So you can see it here that the entire screen, you can see it from here that the entire screen, it takes up the width of the entire screen by default. It just takes up the entire width. But if I specify a width, it reduces it. It reduces the width to 300 px, and 300 px is here. This is the mark for 300 pixels on your computer screen. So also this HR has a length of the entire screen. So I'm going to reduce the width also for this HR tag to, let's say, 30%. 30% of the screen, of whatever screen it is in. So I'm going to add HR as a selector because I'm not using any class. There's only one HR on the document. So I'm just going to type the tag itself. So I've selected the tag HR, my curly braces, open and close. I'm going to add the property of width to this HR, and I'm going to add 30%, 30%. So you notice immediately that the width has been reduced to 30%. Yes, that happened. That's reduced the weight to exactly 30%. Now, the next thing that we need to do, you see that the page is gradually changing because we are adding CSS. Before it was just plain looking. Now we are adding we're adding beauty incrementally to the page using CSS. So let us continue. So to continue, we are going to add a property to the main element of the page. So we're going to place the main elements here. There's no special reason why I am going up and I am placing my selectors above each other. It works anyhow you want to do it. So we have the main elements here. And what I want to do is I want to change the display, or how the contents of that main element should be displayed. So I'm setting it to flex, and let me show you what it means by display flex first. The main element, everything inside the main element starts from here. So everything, including the image, the title, and the paragraph, everything is inside of this main. So if I close the main, everything goes. Now let's see how it's going to be displayed. Everything inside the main. Main starts from here, here, and here, including these two. If I refresh this, notice that everything becomes or displays in a straight line. So I have removed their default display of block and changed their default display to flex. So they no longer have the full width that they usually possess, but now they are having a width that is adapted to the length of the screen. You would understand this as we get into more detail. Let us go back here, and we're going to add an additional property called display display flex, and we're going to add an additional property called flex direction. So I want to change the direction of that display. The display is in a row form, so I'm going to change the direction to a column form, so it to be on a single line coming down. Now watch what happens. Now it is back to normal. So the reason why I added that was to allow me use a property such as justify contents center. This allows me to place all the contents at the middle of the page. or should I say vertically align them at the center of the page. So watch what happens here. So this content now has been moved to the center of the page. If you notice the position of this changed, then next thing I'm going to do is to add another attribute called align items. I'm going to place them at the center also. So this one will align them horizontally on the page. Now we can see that this has been aligned horizontally while the other one aligned it vertically. So now we have this on the page. But if you notice, this is touching the top here, which is not, it's not really good. Let me give the main element an outline so you see where the main element starts from and where the main element stops. So I would go here quickly and give the main element, this main element here. So let me give it some spacing. Just adding some space so you can really see the main element. So this is the main element. And I'm going to give it a border like we gave paragraph. So I'm going to give it a border of 1 px solid green. What it's saying is that give it a border around it. It should be 1 ps. It should be a solid line. It should not be a dotted line, and the color should be green. That's what I'm telling the computer should to do with this border 1 px solid green. So when I do this and I refresh, you notice this green line here. So it tells you where the main element starts from and where it ends. So it starts from the edge of the screen and ends there. So I am going to add a property. I'm going to add a property to the main called margin. You are familiar with margin. So I'm going to add a margin property here, a margin property, and I'm going to add it as 20 pixels, and I'm going to save. So you see the margin. So now you can see that the margin is the space outside of this element. So we've added margin spacing outside of it, not inside of it. We've added margin spacing outside of it. Now you can see the green outline properly. So because there are different screen sizes, if I give it a margin of 20 px, it might not look good on your mobile phone. In fact, let us inspect. When you inspect, you can change the device to see what it looks like. So when you inspect, this is what it looks like on your mobile device. But this doesn't look like what we want here. Sorry, what we want here. This doesn't look like it at all. We notice that there is more margin here and there's more margin here than here. So I'm just going to make those changes. So let us go back, and you notice that there was more margin here. So the margin should start somewhere around here, somewhere around here. So let us go back to our code and add that. So what that tells us is that there is a property, there's a new different property that we're going to use called margin left, margin right. We have margin left, and we're going to use a percentage. Reason why we're using a percentage is so that anytime there is any screen size, it will always look at least similar. So we're going to use a percentage of 20%. 20% should be the left margin, and margin right should be 20% also. Let me add margin top so that margin top margin top should also be 10%. So let's see what 10%. 10% might be larger. Let's see what it looks like here. Yes. Now we see that there is spacing here, there is spacing here, but the spacing on top is too large, too large. So let's reduce that from 10% to 5%. Let's see if that works. So now we've taken it up or taken it higher a little. Now we notice that yes, the margin looks somewhat different on different screens. So we have a property, or we have we have what we call media queries in CSS that allow you to specify the kind of styling that you want to be present for any any screen size or any different device. That's what media queries in CSS allow you to do. But we're not going to look at media queries today. We're just going to look at this desktop view. So this picture reaching the top, if you notice from the image, you'd see that there is a space between this picture and the top here, and there's also space between this and the bottom here. But here you can't find anything like that. There's no space. It's just touching the bottom line, and it's also touching the top. So this is where padding comes in. Padding will add space inside of the element. So let us go and add padding to the main element. So we're going to add padding here. Padding. We're going to add padding of let's make it 20 pixels. Since we're not using percentage, let's just make it 20 pixels, a fixed amount of padding. So good. We now have padding of 20 pixels. There's space underneath, there's space on top of it. Now let us reduce the size of this image. So let's reduce the size of the image. So we'll go back to our image, and we know we set it at 200 pixels initially. I'm going to explain what pixels are shortly. No, I'm not going to explain it here. I will explain it in the main class. The reason is because I do not want this video to be longer than it already is. So let me save this. So 150 pixels and refresh. And now the image is quite smaller. Yes, image is quite smaller. Now it's starting to look like this. It's not yet there, oh, but it's starting to look like this. So the next thing we need to do is to change the color of the main element, because the main element is what we are seeing here. That's a different color. It's a different color. It's somewhat light grayish. So let's change that. Let's change that here. So for us to do that, we're going to set a background. So we set a background color for the main element, and we're going to set it as ed using a hexadecimal value. So there are different ways you can write colors. You can write colors using their name directly. You can write colors using color codes such as hex, HSL, and hexadecimal value. You also have RGB. There are so many things that we are going to talk about when we get to the area of colors. Well, now we are going to use hexadecimal values. So we have hexadecimal values called ED. So ED is the color code for the color that we see there. And when we refresh, we now have this color here. Now we now have this color. We're going to remove this ugly looking um, green outline. But let's remove it here. This border, we'll remove it. And we're going to add something else. We're going to add a border radius. I'm going to add a border radius. So a border radius of 10 pixels might do. I think so. 10 pixels. Border radius of 10 pixels. Remember, this has a border radius here. You can see it's just slightly around the edges there. So 10 pixels. I think 10 pixels might be too much. So let's just test it out first, and we see whether we can reduce it. So taking off. Okay, I think 10 pixels is quite alright. 10 pixels. Well, now taking it off, and we now have border radius of 10 pixels. So we're going to remove this ugly looking outline too. So since we don't have any need for it anymore, so we remove this ugly, and we are going to do something. We're going to say text align justify. So what this does is, just like in your Microsoft Word document where you can have all the elements aligned, all the text aligned to the right or aligned to the left, or centralized or justified, that is spread evenly. We can also do it here in the web browser. So by default, all the elements are aligned to the left. That's what you are seeing here by default. Now I'm setting the new property of the text. I should align all text inside of this paragraph. You should justify them. So I could set it to center. Let's see the different options. So I could set text align. I could set it to center. I could set it to left. I could set it to right, and so many other options. But I just want to set it to justify so you can. So when I do that and I refresh, you notice that it spreads evenly here. Yes, that's what we are hoping to achieve. Now we also need to look at the border. We need to look at that blue ring around this image here. How can we achieve that? We can achieve that using the same thing we.
Now, to add the border around this image, to add that line, the blue line or blue circle around this image, we would use the border, the same thing we used around the edges here. So we'll just go straight into our code editor and add a of border of 5 pixels. That should be 5 pixels thick. It should be a solid line, and the color should be blue. Don't worry, we are going to correct it to look more like the blue that we see here. We are going to correct that soon. So let us save this, Control S, and we go back and we refresh. Now you notice immediately that there is a blue line around it. So we've achieved that. Now let's go back to the navigation bar and fix the navigation bar with CSS. So the navigation bar has two parts. It has the span, which contains the profile.me, and it has the button. So for convenience, I would change this button into an anchor tag and still allow it to look like a button using CSS. So I'll change it to an anchor tag. The reason why I change it to an anchor tag is to allow me add a hypertext reference. A hypertext reference allows you to create a clickable link. So a link that will take you somewhere. So I can add HTTPS, a link to a website, HTTPS, instagram.com slash anybody's account. So I would say studyhub underscore, sorry, where's my underscore digital underscore academy. Yeah. So anytime somebody clicks on this link, it will take them directly to instagram.com slash studyhub underscore digital academy. So in your own side, you are going to add your own Instagram name here, or maybe a link to your own website or your personal Facebook page or any other page. Now remember, we have two files here or two tags here that we need to edit: the profile and the say hi. So let's look at them here: the profile and the say hi. And you notice in the image, the profile, it's white and it's centralized, and the say hi is also white. It's a white text with a black background, and it's also at the right hand side of the screen. So we'll start with this. We'll push this to the right hand side of the screen. Let's start with that. So starting with that, we'll go here and we'll push the button. So since we're not selecting button anymore, we are selecting an A tag. We'll just change that to an A. Then we'll push it. To push it to the right side of the screen, we use a property called float. So it's going to float, ignore every other thing and just float over everything to the right. So I want it to float to the right side of the screen. So float to the right side of the screen. Let's see what that does. If I refresh, you notice say hi now is here but it's invisible. Let me add a background color and make it look more like a button. I will add a background color here. Add a background color. So the background color will be background color will be black, and I would add some padding. Remember, padding is the internal space, so I'll add a padding of 10 pixels all round, top, bottom, left, right. 10 pixels. And I'll change the internal color, the color of the text. This is the background color. Now we can also change the color of the text using the color property. I'll change the color to ED. So we have colors that are in unison. So ED will be the color for the text. So now if I refresh, you can see that I have a background of black, text of white. But you see this underline here. That's what makes it obvious that it's a link. So I'm going to remove the underline. The underline is a decoration for a text in HTML that tells the user that that thing that you are seeing there is a link. So I'm going to remove that with text decoration. I'm going to set it to none. I don't want any text decoration. There are different values that you can apply to text decoration. But now you see that the underline is gone. It's no longer there. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add I want to give it rounded corners. That's border radius. Border radius. I'm going to increase border radius to 5 pixels. So doing that, you see that now I refreshed it using Ctrl R. See that I now have border radius of 5 pixels. So I'm going to do all the color corrections at the end of the video. Then the next thing I want to do is I want to make this side have more space and this edge also have more space. So I'm going to change that here. So this, if you write padding like this, it adds padding to every part of the document, top, left, right, everywhere. But if you add padding with two values, that's 10px and 10px with spaces in between them, it goes like this. The top and the bottom will be 10px, while the left and right will be 10px. While if you add it like this, 10px, 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 it goes clockwise, in the clockwise direction. So it starts with the top, then the right, then the bottom, then the left. So it goes like a clock, like the hands of a clock. So what I want to do now is I want to just use only the top. I want the top and bottom and the left and right to have exactly the same amount of padding. So this first of all is the top and bottom. I want the top and bottom to just have 10px of padding, which is okay. And I want the left and right to have about 20px of padding. So watch what happens. The top and bottom will remain the same, but the left and right will increase. So let me refresh. Yeah, left and right have increased, and they just increased here. So next thing I want to edit now, or I want to style, is the profile.me. So let's go back to span. Remember, profile.me is wrapped in a span tag. So what I will select is the span. So I've already written that out here, span. And what I will do now is to add let's add a color first. Color, and give it the ed color that's almost white. Then additionally we can add something like let's add a font size. Let's add font size. So we can increase the font size to somewhere around 30 pixels and see what happens. I added color and increased the font size. So now you see that the font size has been increased. That's the size of the text has been increased to 30 pixels, and I've added a white color. So now let me change the font. I don't like the way that font looks. So I'm going to add a property called font family and change the font to sans serif. There are so many fonts. There are so many fonts that you could select from, but I decided to use sans serif. There are default fonts that are also present in your web browser that you can utilize, but for now I'm going to be using sans serif font. So I save and I go back here and I refresh. Notice that this profile.me changes. So I am going to go back again because I don't like the size. I'm going to change the size to I'm going to change the size to 25. So let's see what happens if I change it to 25. Becomes smaller. Yes, I prefer this now. So changing it to 25 made it a little bit smaller here. Then the next thing I would do to the text or to that span tag would be to give it. Okay, so I want to just make a small edit. I'll change this to 27. Let's see if it makes it manageable. Yes, yes, yes. I prefer this now. So that's quite all right. So all I need to do next is to correct the color for this, and this. So the color code I am going to be using, the color code I'm going to be using would be this hex code, shade of blue or something. So I'm going to be using this code. Yes, and I save, I refresh, and now we have something that looks like this. So this font that was being used here is called an Ubuntu font, but it's not available here unless I import the font, and I don't want to go into using links to import external fonts or external resources yet. So thank you very much. I want you to practice with small tests we have gone through now. You just practice, you can download the resources, test it out, make some edits on your own, and I'm sure you are going to enjoy it. Also, do not forget to hop on and take the opportunity to join our live class, our 6 week long live class. You are really going to benefit. The benefits have already been stated, and do not underestimate those benefits. Thank you very much.
I am sure now that you can see that it's possible for you to learn and master how to write HTML and CSS in a matter of weeks. You have already taken the first step. Now you have an idea on how to write HTML and CSS, and you understand how it works. So this is just a crash course, and there's so much more you can learn. And to build proper websites, you need proper guidance. My team and I are ready to guide you to becoming a badass web developer in a matter of time. So we're going to be sharing my personal experience with you to ensure that you avoid the mistakes I made and you are able to learn and start getting gigs in the shortest time possible. So you can do this by joining our upcoming 6 week long virtual class, or you could request for a video, a recorded video of our 6 week long virtual class. Now, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the benefits and what you're going to learn within this 6 week long class. So let us proceed. So what would you learn? First, you would learn everything that you need to know about HTML. Everything that you need to know about HTML, how HTML affects SEO, and how you can write semantic HTML. Secondly, you would also learn how you can master CSS, how you can build beautiful web pages with CSS, responsive web pages that if people see it, they will be like, wow, I love this. Who designed this? That is the point that we are trying to hit. Also, you would learn how to use Git for version controlling. You would work on a lot of projects as a group. Now, these group projects that you work on, whether you request a recorded video or you are joining a live class, we would group individuals into groups so that they can work on projects and they will learn how to collaborate using Git and version control. Remember, initially we looked at requirements for a front-end developer, and one of the requirements was the person needs to know how to use Git. So we're going to be teaching you how to use Git and GitHub for version control. Now, we're also going to teach you how to use the CSS library called Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a very popular CSS library. In fact, it's so popular that many persons, when they learn Bootstrap, they tend to forget how to use CSS. But we are going to teach you how to master Bootstrap and also master CSS so that you know when to use which. So we're also going to teach you how to program on the web using JavaScript. JavaScript is a very powerful language. In fact, it's so powerful that in 2020, it was one of the programming languages that was used to write the code that was used to send a shuttle to space in 2020. That's how powerful JavaScript is. We are going to teach you how to write JavaScript. JavaScript is used to build web applications. It's also used to build it's also used to build mobile apps today, and it's also used to build desktop apps. So after all this, what do you stand to gain? What are the benefits? So after learning, you will become confident to take on any challenge as a developer. Any job that comes your way, you will be able to handle it because you have learned fundamentals and you are well grounded in web development. If you take on any job that is challenging, you would always have a community to fall back to that will put you through on how to handle that job. Now, the second thing that you would benefit is this. You would have worked on projects during the project phase of this our program that you would have built a must hire portfolio. A must hire portfolio is a portfolio that when you submit it anywhere, anybody who sees it and sees what you have worked on will say, I need this guy on my team. I need this girl on my team because they are seeing your credibility and they see that, yes, you have the skills needed or required for that position or that job. That is a must hire portfolio. That's what will make you stand out anytime you are applying for a job or a gig as a freelance developer. Now, also when you complete this course, you would have access to a bonus course for soft skill training and also a course that would help you plan to build a web development business. So we're going to give you a free business class and a soft skills training to help you work better with teammates and manage people. Now, you would also have the opportunity to join our alumni community. Now, our alumni community is made up of persons from varying walks of life who have learned through the study of program and have graduated. And now they are in a journey of continuous learning. So, in that alumni community, you get to share experiences, you get to help each other out. And if you have a project, like I said before, you can always reach out to the community for persons who are willing to assist you in working on that project. So, how much is this entire thing, this entire class? How much is it? That's the big question that is in the room. Now, I'm going to give you a simple answer to that question. So, the truth is, there's so much value in what we have talked about. And you know this, that this value that we are offering to you comes at a cost. And we have costed it and we realize that it costs about 65,000 naira for this class. This 6 week class for an individual, 65,000 naira. But wait, we are not going to charge you 65,000 naira to be part of this class. We're not even going to charge you 55,000 naira to be part of this class. We have reduced the price. It's not even 45,000 naira, nor 30,000 naira, nor even 25,000 naira. So how much is it then? It's actually 20,000 naira. So it is absolutely a giveaway. We are giving you all this value for just 20,000 naira, just for you to enjoy and get a job or start your own business as a web developer for just 20,000 naira. Now, another thing that you need to consider is how are our classes held? Give me more details about this class. Some persons asked. How are our classes held? So, our classes are 100% tutor led and 100% virtual. 100% tutor led means that the tutor for our live classes, the tutors will be live with you, teaching you like it's a physical class. So you ask questions, the tutor explains it to you. You're on your computer, he's on his computer, you can see what he's doing. You are asking him questions, you are trying things out. 100% tutor led. Now, the classes are also 100% virtual, meaning that since you are anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world, you can always join in to our classes because our classes are virtual. We hold our classes on Zoom or sometimes on Google Meet. So our classes are 100% virtual and they are held at a convenient time. So they are held mostly on weekends and in the evenings where everybody is assumed to be relaxed and ready to learn. So you can just hop on and wear your pajamas or anything and decide to take your lectures and start learning. And throughout the week, you would work on your projects and practicals. And you will be working in groups because we ensure that you work on peer-to-peer. We love peer-to-peer programs, so that's the best form of learning. So peer-to-peer learning, sorry, that's the best form of learning. So we ensure that each individual works with somebody to ensure that everybody gets the best experience, the best learning experience possible throughout the program. Even those who have requested for a recorded class would also be grouped so that they can work on group projects together in the project phase. So we can't wait for you to join our class. These are some of our alumni. We cherish our alumni and we can't wait for you to become one of them and enjoy the enormous benefits of becoming a Study Hub alumni. Thank you very much for spending your time and watching this video till the end. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and we can't wait to see you in class.